a lot of people's judgment just comes from their own insecurities. Like if you're trying to start a business and someone's judging you, it's just because they're too scared to start one. I think people started making fun of me in like year 9, year 10. And I'd just have like random kids come up to me and I'd never spoken to them. And they're just like, your videos suck.
Jack, I just listened to this podcast interview you did on the Perth Business Podcast. Do you want to introduce yourself, or should I read how they introduced you on that?
I'm happy to introduce myself because I'm sure it's changed a fair bit since then. I think I'm constantly evolving, but the best way to describe me is at the most basic level, I'm an engineering and business law student at the University of Western Australia. But beyond that, I'm really big into writing. So I've written a fair few books of my own, from high school textbooks to some of my own books that are coming out soon. I love making films. I love public speaking, do a fair bit of Ninja Warrior on the side. And I'm sure there's a million other things that I'm not thinking of right now, but we will hear about them as we unfold, I'm sure.
Nice. Yeah, I think, no, that's not too far off because they have young entrepreneur, nonprofit founder. That's to do with the textbooks, right? And then, because I listened to your TEDx talk as well.
Oh, no.
I actually went to watch the documentary, or like to see. I mean, this was like 5 minutes ago, so I wasn't going to be able to watch the whole thing. But it was blocked in the UK. It said Australian TV or something doesn't allow.
Yeah, the Australian Open, we had a little clip in there of Australian Open tennis, just as some footage, and they really did us dirty on that one. They just copyright striked it and stopped us from sharing it in a lot of places outside Australia, which was a shame.
Who was the footage of?
I think it was of Novak Djokovic.
Nice. Yeah, he's really into all this because the documentary is called Realizing Your Dreams, and he's so into, like, he made the Wimbledon, you probably know all this, like he made the trophy when he was like 5 years old out of foil and held it up and was like, one day I will hold this trophy. And it's like, that is visualization.
That's incredible. Yeah, he's a powerhouse.
So what was I going to say? Oh yeah, and then it has 4 times author, independent filmmaker. So there you go. But let's start. I have so many questions for you, but let's start with the only question that's on this podcast, which is, how did you grow up?
Yeah. Wow. It's a loaded question, and I love that you start there with the guests. How did I grow up? I grew up in Perth, Western Australia, for anyone that's kind of outside of Australia. I would describe WA as a very kind of smaller part of Australia in the sense that it's a lot slower than the rest of Australia, in my opinion, when you compared to the eastern states. But wow, how did I grow up? So I would describe my growing up as quite privileged. That's probably the best way to describe it, and the thing that's had one of the biggest influences over me in terms of how I've gone about directing the rest of my life. So went to a really nice public school as a kid, then went to a good private school. And then all throughout high school, I took school way too seriously. I reckon I studied my butt off and sacrificed most things in order to get that good old ATAR, and lost a lot in the process and learnt a lot. But yeah, had a very good upbringing in terms of had all the opportunities that I needed, and great teachers, great people to support me. And then following that, left school and have been trying to help bridge the equity gap in education ever since, and really make a difference, because I think after going from being in a private school environment to then stepping out and going into lower socioeconomic schools, ever since that moment, I've just been really compelled to want to make a difference in the world, in education.
So how did you become aware of that gap?
I think it was the contrast in terms of so obviously in school, I actually thought my teachers were terrible going through school. I hated school, hated my teachers. And then it was only when I started doing volunteer work through an organization that I used to help run called Ignite Mentoring, where basically there's like in university, we have about 170 of us volunteers, and we'll go into low socioeconomic schools and teach them key life skills. So just really basic things like teamwork and leadership and resilience. And whilst the learning outcomes aren't massive, we do help increase the attendance rates a lot of these schools. Like a lot of these kids just never come to school, but when we're there and running these programs, they'll come and visit on those days, which is really cool. And I think I just started to see, like, for instance, some of the kids that we were teaching had never been to the beach. They'd never seen the Swan River, which is just crazy, even though they're like 20, 30 kilometers away. They have no ambitions to go to university. It's not even a consideration at that point. And I think just having grown up in an environment where it was almost an expectation that you would get a good education and that you would go to university. I'm not saying that's like the given path, but I think it's quite sad that just because those kids were born into a different area in Perth, that all of a sudden the prospects for their future are completely redefined by the expectations of those around them and the quality of teaching and everything else that comes with socioeconomic disadvantage.
And how did they end up in that mentoring program?
So we just kind of go through the schools. So we would pick schools based on their ICSIA score, which is essentially scoring low, like socioeconomic status across Perth. And we had about 6 different schools, and we would teach kids from years 8 to 10 once a week at these schools. And if your class was lucky enough to have us, then we got to come and hang out with you every single week, and they really enjoyed having our programs. I got to have some of the kids back to back for a few years, and it was just fantastic to build relationships with them over that time.
Got it. So wait, going back to when you're at school, what are some of the things you sacrificed or you think you sacrificed when you said you...
I'm very interested in education because I think it's taken a lot out of me. It's given me a lot, and it's taken a lot out of me in the process. I think I was very frustrated going through school, that I felt like I had so much expectation placed on me going through year 11 and 12. There was this expectation to achieve and to do incredibly well. And so that involved me. Yeah, it's really interesting to say where it came from in terms of I can't really underpin it. Like my parents aren't people who are overbearing or helicopter parents. They wouldn't have barely known what kind of grades I was getting. They just were very happy with whatever I was doing. I think it was a self-created expectation amongst like competition within my own like high school, and just being a very competitive dude at a young age and having an ego at the time. I think I was just very driven to beat them, and I was very convinced that this ATAR number would make a huge difference in my life, and it has to an extent. But considering I haven't really mentioned it outside of these kind of conversations, it's lost its complete relevance since school, and that really frustrated me because I went through school clinging on to every single test, like praying that I would do well in a test the next day, and my self-worth and my enjoyment in life would fluctuate with every single test and every single grade. So I think it was quite an overwhelming experience for something that is incredibly important, but way too over-exaggerated in terms of you need this to be successful. I think the schools have got it a little bit wrong there.
But where does that message come? So ATAR is the because it wasn't even called that when I was at school. This is like your final mark that you get in school. This is interesting to me because I same as you, like love winning, like was like I want to be the best. I was obsessed with like the enter score calculator, was like this is the score I'm going to get. And then I got a really great score. Cool, who cares? Like I'm that's something that's I'm good at. There are lots of other things I'm not good at. And it's like, that's just one, that doesn't, it means like, great, I got into a good university. I got jobs that require you to get top scores, but so what? I ended up like extremely depressed and X, Y, and Z, right? So it's like, who cares? Like it's like, you can care, like it means something in some. It's not that it doesn't mean anything. Like it's important to work hard. It's something you care about. But it's like if your thing that you care about is being really good tennis, then it's like, yeah, it matters that you're winning matches, right? If you've chosen that that's the thing that matters. But the point is you
Yeah,
get to choose, right?
definitely. In my opinion, I think education has a law of diminishing returns in the sense that I believe that if you get like 70 or 80%, the difference between the kid who's getting 80% and the kid who's getting 95%, I don't believe there's actually a huge learning jump. I just believe that person who's getting 95% has just rote learned a lot harder the content. And I think schooling is really important, and I think kids should learn to a certain extent. But I think once you start to push into that upper echelon of like 75% to 80 to 90% to 95%, what you get is a bunch of high achieving, overstressed kids who are super anxious and place all their self worth into results and competition. And then they get to the end of it and they're like, wow, I just have a number. And it's no different between in that top range. We're all pretty smart dudes and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but I'm kind of saying because there are people who will just get really good at, say, take one thing like coding or something. Some people just get it and they're just naturally going to be really good, where someone else might have to put tons of effort into it. But so, like for me, it's like maths, right? I just get it, and that's what I did in my undergrad. So that's just something I'm good at, and it's not stressful for me. And I don't have to, like, I take it seriously, but I don't kill myself. There's no rote learning because it's maths. It's like you just get it or you don't get it. But it's like, who cares? It doesn't matter if you're really good at doing maths exams. Like, if someone could pay me to do exams, like a lot of money, great. But otherwise, it's like, what's the point? Oh, the point is it opened up these other doors, right? So it's like you've got to work out what the point, if you don't care about going to uni because actually you really want to be an actor or whatever, you want to go to theatre school or like you want to do a trade, then it's like, yeah, is it worth your time? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's just figuring
Yeah.
out your priorities. So maybe you are now thinking, but so what are the things that, like, what do you feel like you gave up at school? Like,
Um,
what would you have been doing rather than studying?
yeah. So if if I look back on like the last four years of my life, I want to like pre-state that I would not change anything in terms of what I've actually done. Like I am very grateful. Like I've had some really um, like big mistakes, but I am so grateful that they have all happened because I can't imagine if I was any different, I would not. I can't. I want to be exactly who I am. So like I'm very happy that these things happened. But at the time, it was incredibly painful because particularly in year 12, I think I gave up essentially everything. I remember one of my friends actually when I first met her, um, she was at the library and she still reminds me of this story, which is I'd never met her before, and one of my mates walks over to her and says, "Hey, this is Jack," and then I just kind of look at her and then just walk off and go and study because that's how focused I was in that year 12. I didn't really see anyone. I didn't want to hang out with people because I was busy studying. I would skip days of school so I could make sure that I'm prepared for exams. I skipped like the last 2 weeks of school just so I could just study more. And I did everything in my power to do as well as I possibly could. And I think that's the biggest thing I sacrificed in terms of friendship. I didn't really know about mental health at the time. I wasn't aware of it when I was in year 12. I was just oblivious to it. I didn't realize if I look back, I was probably in a very terrible state at the time, but I wouldn't have known. And yeah, and then
Just like
I
really
just sacrificed
anxious.
everything. Oh yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
you were obsessive.
Obsessive. That is the best word to describe it. I was obsessed with every part of school for no apparent reason. I had no goal at the end of it. I just really wanted to do well. That was it.
But it sounds like, without trying to psychoanalyze you or anything, to be a 21-year-old, like when I was 21, I think the most notable thing I can think of that I'd done to that point was like being hospitalized for alcohol poisoning at schoolies and then being on the front page of the newspaper. That's it. Like wasn't writing, like I haven't written book, like you've written these books, you've made a documentary, you've done all this stuff. It's like for someone to do so much in such a short amount of time, it's like that's, I guess, must be part of your personality, that you just see a goal and then you work nonstop to achieve it. Would that be
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah, so I believe one of the reason that I said I wouldn't change anything in terms of school is because it has built me into the person that I am today. Um, and the biggest benefit I gained from school, and doing competitive swimming for like 5 years and being absolutely terrible at it, just like never winning, barely making the inter-school team every single year, and training like 8 days a week to try and get better. What I learned is the ability to just show up and do boring work for long periods of time. I think that's what studying taught me in particular. I think it's a very unique kind of perspective on school, but that was probably the best thing that it taught me in terms of I learned how to sit down at a chair and practice boring practice exams on subjects that I didn't care about for 8 hours a day. And as a result, I've been able to push through in the moments. Because I think when you're starting anything, whether you're writing a book or creating a documentary or starting your own company, I think there's always going to be hugely boring days. And that was a skill that I learned in school, which is just how do I get myself in the chair? How do I stay in that chair? And how do I just kind of embrace what's going on so that I can get to the end? So it's an incredible gift, like skill that I developed during school.
And I guess you were led by this motivation that was like, if I achieve this, like some magical thing that will happen. And then you've realized that's not real. And now you're like, is that kind of what it is? Because I've done that plenty of times in my life. It's like attach my self-worth to something else. So it's like, when I have this, everyone will see like I'm the most whatever and everything will be perfect. And it's like this fantasy. And then you achieve it and it's like,
Yeah,
okay.
you're reading me inside out here. One of my friends would attest to this. So like, because one of my best friends, she just hears all my. I always come to her with new theories on what I think's going to happen, or I'll just say something. And I think one of the biggest collapses of thoughts, like the biggest theory that I had, where I attached my self worth to something, was when I wrote my first chemistry book. So I'll take you back and then maybe build up to this little fiasco. So when I was in 19 years old, I had my first year of university, and I was trying to be a normal person. I think after school, I was a pretty loud kid during school. Like I had my own YouTube channel, and I tried to start a few businesses, and those all failed, and I got made fun of a lot for all of it. And I guess rightfully so. School's kind of just that environment where if you're different, you get picked on. So I tried to fit in, leaving school. I tried to fit in my first year of university, and then I got to the end of the first year, and I was pretty depressed. Like I just wasn't myself in any capacity. I was trying to be normal, and I just wasn't a normal person in terms of I just wasn't interested in what everyone else cared about. I was a very goal driven, and I loved doing projects and stuff. So at the end of first year, I was like, cool, I want to do something big, and I want to do something that I want to do. So then I decided that it actually the idea came to me to write non-for-profit textbooks. So for year 12 students in the WA curriculum, the idea came when I was sitting in uni at like 4 a.m. and I was studying for an exam, and I fell asleep at my textbook. And then I kind of just had this epiphany that I had really boring textbooks in year 12, and I still have really boring textbooks in university. So I felt compelled to kind of go back and really write some books that are inspiring and make a difference. So I got four of my mates together, and I said, hey, let's do this. We're going to publish 6 books in the first year. And boy, were we wrong. It took us a year and a half to write the first chemistry Unit 3 book, so just half of chemistry. Because these books were massive in terms of these are full curriculum-based textbooks with all the problem sets, all the notes, all the content, practice exams, and all work solutions. So like these were mammoth books. And we were innovating the space. Yeah.
Can we just pause here? And because, okay, so this is, well, you haven't mentioned the non-for-profit bit, but I'm imagining I'm
Yeah,
guessing this is to do with because you were mentoring in school, so you realized. I'm interested in how that ties in. But
of
at
course.
this point, you're saying, I'm going to write a textbook. That's like when you're like at uni, you're trying to do this stuff and like figure everything out, and then you're just like, I'm going to do this massive amount of work. Okay, that's one thing, and then maybe you like didn't realize how much work it would be. Fine, but then the fact that 5 other people or 4 other people come on and they're like, "Sure, I'll write a textbook." It's like, what were you motivated? Like, what was going to be in it for you, and what was in it for them? Like, because
Um, yeah,
that's like a massive thing to take on.
I think the people that I've done it with have a lot of trust in me, in the sense that I feel like I could always come to them and say, "Hey, let's do this," and they just kind of believe in what I want to do, so they just agree most of the time. I think I had the right people, to be honest. None of us none of us say no to new opportunities. We just do it. We don't really think about it, and that really backfires sometimes. Like it backfired for the first textbook heavily when we found out how much work it was. But if I'm being honest, I think it was a lack of awareness as to how much work it would be. We thought it would take us a month to write the chemistry book. Like we were convinced that we would have it done in a month. That was probably the problem.
Right. But so how do you
Yeah.
pitch it to them? Is it just you have so much excitement? You're like, guys, we're rewriting the whole curriculum. Get on board. It's going to be awesome. And they just love hanging out with you or something. So they're like, oh, instead of going to the pub, like I would so much rather just be sitting looking at chemistry problems with Jack because
Yeah.
I really. Or what? Were you like, we're going to make so much money? No,
Nah,
right? Because you did it as a
it was all going to be
non-profit.
non for profit. Yeah, so we established that from the start. Like that was always the intention. So I think it was a few things. So for instance, my mate Rabi, who was the first person that I asked, I said, "Bro, I've got an idea for a non for profit," and then all he replied was, "Brother, I'm in," and then that was it. I didn't even tell him what it was. So that's the kind of dudes that we're dealing with. Is they just said yes before I explained it to them for 1 minute, and they said yes. I asked a few other people, and I spent about an hour explaining the idea to them. So the people that I explained for a minute and they said yes joined, and then all the other people that I had to explain for an hour either like stuck around for a little bit and then quit, or just like told me it was a terrible idea and then just hung up basically. So I think I think it's just the types of people we don't. I feel like the people that I surround myself with and the people that I've always been around, I just have new ideas every other day, and I'm just like, hey, let's go do this, and then they're like, sure, and that's really the extent of the conversations most of the time. I don't want to convince them. If I have to convince them, then they're not the right people in the sense that this is good work. We're doing good for the community, and I don't really want to have to force people to do it. And that's how we've always been. I don't really force anyone to do the projects that I'm doing. I just say, hey, this is what I'm working on, and half the time people say yes, and that's just how it kind of floats, I guess.
Okay, so people got on board with the idea of we're doing something good for the world. This is the idea. It's a big vision. And so
Yeah.
where did that come from for you? Like, was that because you're working at these schools that you wanted to give something back to them?
Yeah. So I think the best way to describe it, I find it really interesting that a lot of people find their spark or they say, I love education. I definitely do love education, but I have what I call like push and pull factors in the sense that it wasn't just my love to give back to the community that pulled me towards doing this thing. There were a bunch of reasons why I wanted to do it. Um, the first and foremost was a challenge. As silly as it might sound, I just love challenging myself and doing what I can't do. Like that's the biggest kick out of life that I get. I just love. I hate doing the same thing. If I get good at something, I just want to go do something else. So the idea of writing a book at such a young age and writing textbooks which had never traditionally been written by 19-year-olds. It sounds cool now, but at the time, the teachers thought we were crazy. So I really enjoyed the idea of it being challenged. I wanted to give back, and there's this big textbook company called Pearson. I don't know if you've like if they get used globally. And we named our group chat like Men Who Eliminate Pearson because our goal was just to get rid of Pearson because we just hated the fact that this billion-dollar company makes so much money selling these books that we never used. We described them as like door stops. So that's pretty much what the book served for us during high school. So we just wanted to write better ones. Yeah, I think it was just the distaste for textbooks in general. It's just like they were so bad in school, so we just wanted to make them better.
This is amazing because so
Yeah.
I'm guessing you hadn't thought through like how does the publishing industry work? How does the school curriculum work? Like who chooses the textbooks? Like what's our go-to-market strategy? You were just
Yeah,
like,
no.
we are gonna disrupt the textbook industry and
Yeah, so
it's gonna
I've
happen
never
in
thought
one
of
month.
I'm a big like try and fail kind of guy. I don't I'm not a planner. I just start something, fail, and then just figure it out as I go. So yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, how do you have to get these things checked off? Do you need to get them checked by a teacher? Does it have to align with certain standards, or do you need approval? And we hadn't considered any of that. And people started asking us like 6 months in, and it was only then I started actually looking into that stuff. We'd just been writing, so yeah, like next year, I don't want to like jump forward too fast, but like next year, I'm merging the textbook organization with another organization to build a Khan Academy equivalent for Australia. So we got like 50 volunteers, and I haven't really thought about it that much. Like I don't have a plan for it. I kind of just do it, and I find that usually it's always worked out so far. I'm sure it'll backfire at some point, but I'm trying to get more people in my corner who are better planners than me.
I guess if you're not affected, like, are you affected by the failure in a negative way, or does it motivate you to keep going?
I'm so one of the books that I'm writing based on the documentary Realizing Dreams is about how to reach your dreams. And I think from writing that and just throughout my life, I've been pretty aware of the fact that you can't get anywhere without failing. Um, I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have, especially with like getting started, is they want to change the world, but they're not willing to just start with the first idea that comes to their mind. Like they're kind of waiting for this revolutionary product that's going to change the world. But in my opinion, I don't think you can find that revolutionary product until you start with your first idea and just like you've got to get immersed in something to begin with. So I understand that with everything that I do. So I always come into things as a beginner. I just say, okay, what's the thing that I can do right now that I'm capable of doing? That prevents me from getting overwhelmed. And then I just embrace the failure and accept that it's a learning curve and just keep going. Like, for instance, I think the most demoralizing thing was with the chemistry book, the first one that we wrote. So I worked on the first chapter for 3 months straight. So the whole summer holidays, I put in like a thousand, like so many hours. It wasn't even funny. And then we
Were
handed
you
it over to,
were you
yeah, sorry.
still like keeping on top of your uni work, or did you just
Yeah,
forget
no, you
about
don't want to
uni?
get, my uni strategy is really not great. People don't like it. It works for me, but it's a very kind of
You're
Parkinson's law
just
approach where I
study
just,
the day before the
yeah,
exam type thing, and don't go to
yeah,
class
but
the whole semester.
yeah, yeah, it works out though. I just feel like I've got my own processes and I still do well. It's not for everyone. It's just what works for me. So yeah, but I handed this first chapter to our teacher Neil Rumble, and we'd been working on this for 3 months straight, and I was so excited. And then he just told that like we had to rewrite the entire thing, and then we proceeded to rewrite that chapter for another 3 months, and we had 6 months until the publication date, and we had seven more chapters to go. Um, so it was insurmountable in terms of odds. Like we'd written one chapter in 6 months, and we just failed and failed and failed to find the formula that works for us because we were trying to make these student friendly, have a student to student voice, include a lot of narratives in the book with a lot of like characters that are fictional to make the problem sets more engaging. We were trying to create topic notes to save kids like studying for their exams, so they just have exam notes before they go into the exam. So we're trying to reinvent the wheel in every single way, and that caused us to fail a lot. And then we had like 6 months left to write 7 chapters, and we got it done in the end. We just once we figured out the process, we then applied it to all the other chapters, and we got it done. But yeah, I just think, yeah, you just got to be
So
really resilient.
Are they in schools now?
Yeah, yeah. So they've been in schools for 2 years now, the chemistry ones. A lot of the kids like them, so I think there's a lot to the books that are really, really unique. So like we have all the answers online, so you can see full work solutions to every single problem. We have like we turn the whole book into a novel. So you have these chemistry books that are traditionally really boring, and we turned all the problem sets into like a novel with like 15 fictional characters who go to like chemistry college and go on all these different kinds of adventures throughout the year. And then they love the topic notes as well. So basically, we just created test notes and exam notes so that they could kind of just rip them out before their exam and walk in with those. Because I think note preparing is one of the lowest levels of learning, and I think kids waste way too much time creating notes, and people should just have access to them because it brings no learning value. It just takes up a lot of time. So yeah, those were the kind of unique things. It's allowed it to stay in the schools. At the start, we got rejected by every single school for about 6 months, and they all said no.
What were
Most of
you
them never got back to
doing?
us.
Just calling the school? Like, how do you even pitch the book to the school? And how does it work? Because, I mean, I can't remember
Of, co-
from when I was at school, but
of course,
because don't you
yes,
buy textbooks yourself? Like, they tell you, or is it the school procures them and they're available in the school shop or something, or they're in the
yeah.
library?
So in Australia, at least, how it works is you basically how to get a book on a book list. So you call up a school, you cold call their like reception. You then cold email the teachers because you kind of convince the school that you need to email the teachers, and if they let you, you send an email off. You then get a meeting with that teacher. You try and convince the teacher that your book is good, and then if they book list it with a local distributor, then the students will see the book list at the start of the year. They'll tick your book to buy it, and then your books will be in that school. So generally, it's in terms of how to get into those schools, you have to usually convince a head of science or whatever head of your book is going into.
And then that will be the one book or will it be like, there's two alternative textbooks? We
It depends on
recommend
the
buying
school.
this.
Yeah, so it depends on the school. I think for very high, like very private school based ones, I know even the top schools use like 6 books, which I think they spend like $400 per subject. That's very, very elite. But I think most schools spend like would just have 1 or 2 books, so they'll probably have 2 books per class, like per subject. And then all the low socioeconomic schools will usually have 1 book. And that's kind of where the donation model comes in. So our whole goal with Thrive Ed and what we're working on in the future is for every 2 books that we sell, we produce and donate a 3rd book, and that goes into a low socioeconomic library. So that goes into their library system. The students can hire it out every single year. And the goal is to create a system in WA at least where people who can afford textbooks purchase the books, and then kids who don't want to be burdened by having to pay a lot of money for a lot of textbooks can just go to their library, hire these out for free, and just bring them back at the end of the year. And we're just trying to create this more equitable system. And we're making good strides, and hopefully we'll get there in the future.
Cool. So how much does a textbook cost, the chemistry one?
Yeah, so we sell our unit. So we divide our books into units 3 and 4. We sell our books at $50 and then $40. So like $49.95 and then $39.95. We just sell it at the price that everyone else sells it at. But the reason, like, I'd make them way cheaper if I could, but we don't print. Like a lot of those companies print in China, so they can print their books really, really cheap. And they print 10,000 of them, whereas we're printing 500 to 1,000 at a time. So our printing costs are a lot higher, so we go local. And then we have the donation model as well. So we have to factor that into every single book, which is like half a book price has to go into every single kind of book that we sell. So by the end of it, and when you factor in distribution fees for the actual school distribution services, we don't end up making a whole lot of money on them. Not that that's the goal. So we break even and we have enough to get by. And yeah, the goal is to go online next year though. So eventually I'm hoping that we can shift online next year or the year after, because I don't really like wasting paper, to be honest. And I'm hoping that as the education system moves more and more online, it'll become more and more of an accepted thing. So yeah, that's the goal.
So every time you came up against a new thing, you just looked at it then? For example, like getting the books printed, you were like, okay, we have no idea how to do this. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, that's how I've done. I trust me, when I'm giving advice to people, people just kind of laugh at me a lot of the time, in terms of time management or how to go about doing something. Yeah, I've just never, I think I've always had so much on the go that I've never had time to really think about, like, think forward and just focus in on one thing. So that's kind of just how I've always done things, is I just deal with it as it comes. And yeah, that's what works best for me. I don't think it works for everyone, but it just works for me.
Okay, so this is really cool. What, what? No, because it's like you did it, you achieved the thing. Well, I think that's what you're going to say. What? Sorry, I kept interrupting. What was the point of this story with your friend? So, did you have this big fantasy at the end when it's like, when you achieve this, I'll
Oh
have.
yeah. So I think I was because I was like, damn, 19-year-old author. That's pretty cool. Everyone's gonna love this. And I didn't tell anyone that I was writing these books for the entire year. I actually kept it a secret that whole time because,
What did they
and I
think
know
you were
you,
doing? They thought you
I
were just
just,
studying in your room or something.
yeah, so I reckon I was pulling like just every waking hour. I'd get up at like 3:30 a.m. and just work till like 8 p.m. and then go to bed
Why?
and just, yeah,
Why 3:30?
I was just learning. I think I like to question my own assumptions
You're a
all the time,
morning
and
person.
I don't think I'm a morning, but I just test new things all the time, and I obviously don't do that anymore. It was stupid, but I thought it'd be cool to try. I thought it might be more productive. It wasn't, but it was good to give a go. Anyway, so we continued working. I didn't tell anyone about it, and I was expecting some kind of big fanfare once I released the book. I was like, this is gonna be sick. All my problems are gonna go away. I've worked so hard on this. Uh, I can't wait. And then I published the book. The books arrived a month later, and you just kind of move on to the next thing. I realized, um, and then I think it took me a few goes to realize that, like, material achievement doesn't really do anything for me. It took me it took me till the second book. I released the second book and I was like, oh, this will feel better because I've got both out now and I can relax. And then you just kind of move on to the next project or the next book, or the next assignment at uni or the next sporting goal that you have elsewhere. So that's when I started changing my perspective, where I just started embracing the work and enjoying what I do, and not really. I've kind of gotten to the point where I just understand that no matter what it is that I accomplish, it won't really mean anything to me. I'll just want to do the next thing, and that's fine with me. It doesn't really bother me. I'm not a dweller. I just kind of go on to the next thing, and I'm pretty happy doing that, to be honest, because I just make sure I do what I love doing.
Great. So are you living at home?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm
And
living at home at the moment. Yeah.
and what did your parents think when you're waking up at 3:30? Like did they know you're writing this textbook, or what do they think you were doing?
Yeah, no, I think they knew all along. I think my parents, because I'm in a family of six, so I've got three siblings, sorry, and I think my brothers and stuff just thought it was the funniest thing. They kind of thought the textbooks was like the dumbest idea ever, and it was just destined for failure. So they let me know as a joke. That's just kind of how we joke
Are
about with one
they
another.
older
But
or younger?
two younger brothers and then an older sister. So my sister was fine with it. She was actually helping us out with the process, but my two brothers just made so much fun of me, as they always have with anything that I do that's new. They just kind of they just get a kick out of it. But yeah, my parents were pretty supportive. I think my dad was, when I said I was going to write 5 textbooks in a year, he was just like, probably just get one done to start with. But they're also entrepreneurs, so they kind of embrace this stuff. They're not really they're not hesitant to it. They're just like, go for it. So I'll just tell stuff to my mum and dad that I'm working on, and they'll just be like, oh yeah, that's cool. And like there's no real judgment or telling me not to do things. I don't think they've ever said don't
Okay,
do
so they
something.
weren't
So
like,
yeah,
you need to be studying.
no, no. Oh, because I've always been fine with studying. They tell my little brothers to study, but they've never told me to study because I don't really need to be told to do it. I just do it. I make it work. It's been very hectic to manage study with it, but we get it done.
So what do you mean that you didn't tell anyone? Like, you mean you didn't tell if you went out to a party or something, you wouldn't talk about it?
Yeah, yeah. So I became a square for that year pretty hard. As context, I realized why I did this only after the fact that I did it. So yeah, I mentioned earlier when I was in school, I did like a YouTube channel when I was in year 9 and 10, and it was a
What
gaming
was it
channel
about?
on Call of Duty. And I'd have face cam videos, and I didn't tell anyone about it, but then all the kids found out eventually when I had a couple like thousand subscribers. People found it, and then after that, I got made fun of for like a year. Like kids would take my videos and like put them up on the projectors in class and be like, "Oh, sorry, miss, I didn't realize I was connected," and it was very traumatizing for me. I don't hate them for it. Like they're all it's just kind of how a boys' school is, but that really traumatized me. So when I left school, I was very I was very worried that that was going to happen again, that I was going to start writing books or starting this non for profit, and then people would judge me again. Um, I realized that people stop kind of judging you after school. Like people just get on with their own worlds a lot more. But yeah, I just kind of stayed silent on it. And I think anyone that I did tell like 5 or 6 people, but they all didn't really believe in the idea, which is fair enough. Like I don't blame them for not thinking that because no one had, I'd never known someone that's written high school textbooks at that age before. So they were all pretty against, like, they were all just like, it's probably not going to work. And I was like, what's the point of telling anyone? So I just knuckled down and just stuck with it because telling other people didn't really help because they weren't very supportive at the time.
Was that really hard when that happened at school with
Was
people
it
making
hard?
fun of the gaming thing? Yeah. Like, did it really impact you?
Yeah, yeah, heaps. Yeah, I was such an interesting person at school in the sense that I had such a big chip on my shoulder. I'd always walk around and be so defensive because I think people started making fun of me in like year 9, year 10. And I'd just have like random kids come up to me during school and I'd never spoken to them. And they're just like, your videos suck, just like to my face. And I'm like, I'm in year 9 or year 10. And it's really demoralizing, particularly when they played the videos in class. Um, but at the time, YouTube wasn't really a big thing. Like TikTok and stuff is really a big deal, like a big thing now. So kids can kind of get away with it, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's fine." But when I did it, I was the only person that had ever done this, like in the year above or year, but like no one else had done this. So it just became a big joke at the time. Um, so I'd get really confrontational with people, and because I would always hold my ground, I'd have no problem with like telling people how it is. But then that would just egg them on even more, where they'd love it if I just start getting all mad at them. So yeah, it definitely bugged me.
Okay. So it became like a fun thing of like, go and take the
Yeah,
piss out of this guy because his reaction, it will be so funny. Like, whereas, because I guess that's the thing, to not care, to not being affected by what people think, is when you own it. Like, you're just like, yeah, who cares? Like, what do you do with your life? Like, or, when it's not. Okay, I really have to think about this because I'm going to start making TikTok seriously, and it's going to be so embarrassing. I am so
that's
worried about
amazing.
what people think. So it's funny what you say, that you're like, I feel like this goes away. Like, it doesn't go away. If you're someone who cares about what people think, I think there's some people who just don't care. They do their thing, like even from school, they do their weird little thing that they're into, like they're so into something really niche, but they don't care, so it doesn't matter. But then there's other people who really care, and
Yeah,
it's like,
no, I find
how do
it's
you
actually.
learn to not care?
Yeah, so I was listening to one of the previous episodes, and I heard you mention this like very in a similar vein. When it was your yoga instructor who'd survived stage 4 cancer, I found that really insightful. And you were talking about how like how the opinions of others really gets to you. Um, I think my theory on dealing with it is it definitely used to get to me. And then I feel like through writing the book that I'm releasing in like a month's time is um, I started reflecting on how much time of my day I spend thinking about other people, which is almost 0%. And then I think about how many times I've actually thought about someone negatively, or if they've done something embarrassing. I literally can't think of a time that I've seen someone do something stupid or embarrassing and given it more than like 20 seconds of thought. Um, and I know other people aren't exactly like that. I know more people have like nothing else interesting in their lives, so they kind of just like look at what everyone else is doing. But I believe that we fundamentally overestimate how much people care about us and how much they're actually thinking about us. There's like this great quote I read the other day, and it's like, a lot of people are going to be really disappointed when scientists discover that the center of the universe isn't them. And I think that's so true. Is a lot of people, everyone just walks around. It's like that idea of the spotlight effect. Everyone walks around with a giant spotlight on their heads, and then when you actually think internally, it's like, cool. How much of my day do I actually spend thinking about other people? And maybe it's like 1 or 2%. And it's like, cool. How much of that time do I spend thinking about people negatively? And it's like 1 or 2% of that 1 or 2%. So for me, that really helps me move forward. And it stops me from caring what other people think.
So was that the hardest thing? Like, was that your lowest point? Or have there been other times when you've really struggled?
Ooh. Um, yeah, I think no, school I think in school I had a purpose. Like I could just always fall back on studying. It didn't really, if I was feeling down, I was just like, oh cool, I'm gonna get this ATAR. And I thought that was fine. I was just pretty happy. I wasn't happy, but like I always had that to fall back on, and that sense of direction. I think the lowest point was that first year of writing the textbook. Like I co-founded it with four other people, but like if we actually look at like the actual workload, I probably did like 80 to 90% of the initial workload. I was very isolated that year. I barely saw anyone. That actual whole year, I just didn't care. I just was like, cool, I'm gonna go do this. I was busy with studying and with work and with writing this book, so I just didn't care about other people that year. So I became really isolated. I was incredibly overworked that year. Um, so I think I think like everyone, my like self worth and like self worth is probably like the biggest thing that I deal with in terms of like I don't get like depression or anxiety, but I like do deal with self worth issues. I haven't researched into how that kind of falls into it all, but yeah, I think it just fluctuates a lot. Um, yeah, and there's no. I always find that once I can always find a way to pull myself through it or out of it, if I just kind of remind myself. But so yeah, I've never had extended periods. But yeah, it's just I feel like it's just always I just kind of embraced it at this point. It's always a bit of a struggle. So yeah.
So is it something like you're at first year uni, you're like, okay, I'm going to be quote unquote normal, whatever that means, because there is no such thing. But you're like, okay, I feel like I'm a bit different. I'm going to try and fit in. And then you're like, I'm not being myself, so I'm really unhappy. And then your self worth's affected, but then you turn it into a goal where you're like, or so what happens when you feel low self-worth if you don't get depressed? Do you just get angry or frustrated, and then you're able to channel that into, okay, well, I'm going to write a textbook and put all my energy into that, and that will make
Yeah.
up for the fact that I don't fit in or something like that.
Yeah, that was okay. That was probably the biggest time I struggled. Just is when I was writing that first textbook. I thought I was so weird for being different. I was so embarrassed. Like it was my biggest fear for people to find out that I was writing a book. Like I have no idea why, but I was so scared. So, but beyond that, I think I find that with myself worth, the thing that kind of it's just what you value. Like you just have to focus on what you value, and I really value new experiences and doing new things and kind of challenging myself. So I find my self-worth gets pretty low when I get bored. So like during exams, I am so bored. I'm studying a lot, but I get so down because I'm just sitting there doing the same boring work and I'm not stimulated at all. Right now, I've got 2 books due in 15 days and then another 15 days after that. I'm pretty bored at the moment in the sense that I'm just like not really like nothing's really ticking over. I'm kind of just doing a lot of writing and stuff. So what
This
really,
is
and I know this is,
textbooks.
yeah, textbooks and what's it called, and my own book, which is like based on the documentary that I made. But yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
find what pulls me through is thinking about what's next, and just knowing that what's at the end of the tunnel is something different and something that I can look forward to, and then that kind of gets me excited. I was actually listening to the other episode the other day on about Gareth, and I found one of the really interesting things and something that I took away from that, and I was like, wow, I really need to start working on this. Is I think I'm really good at like pulling myself through goal setting and chasing your dreams and doing what you love. But what I don't work on at all is exactly what Gareth does, which is like kind of the small things, the daily practices that help you manage your mental health and stop you from falling into this. Like when he's like, I wake up in the morning and do 45 minutes of meditation. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I fall asleep watching movies or YouTube every single night. I need to work on this. So I think there's 2 sides to it, and I haven't worked on the other side at all.
Do you know Gareth?
Yeah, I've met him a few times. He's a bit of a legend.
So, yeah, you should for sure try and meditate because I don't know, it's really cool. It's not boring at all. You get to know everything that's inside you. You get to experience what consciousness is and what it's like. The meditation I did this morning was just about it's like you are just sitting there acknowledging, being aware of the fact that you are life and that you exist. It's like, how often do you stop to become aware of your body and the fact that you are like a living, breathing organism? It's like, that's not boring. That's so fucking interesting when you become aware of everything that's going on in you. So, yeah, and it's just like a practice. And then that can help you stay grounded because you know when you're doing all these goals and everything, but they're always changing. But then that's one thing that never changes. Like the one thing you have for your entire life is your breath. That's the only thing
Yeah.
that doesn't change, right? So, yeah, I mean, give it a shot if you want. But if you don't, like, I'm sure you'll get to a point when you're like, damn, I need to like manage stress or something. And this is helpful for it.
Yeah. No, I definitely it's a practice that I'm like trying to. I started listening to one the other night as I fell asleep, and it was like some sleep meditation. It's really scary because I was like asleep, but I wasn't asleep. I was conscious, but my whole body. It was this really weird experience. So I'm starting to get into it as I fall asleep. But I think it's twofold. I think all the stuff that Gareth tackles is really really interesting. Um, but I think the equal kick that I get out of in terms of satisfaction and my own mental health and what's absolutely critical in that is doing what I love every single day, which is why I'm so passionate about helping other people to do that through both formal education and through the life education stuff that I'm working on. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, how did you embrace who you are from going from a point where you felt like it's so weird what you're doing? And this is because I struggle with this. So, I want to know the secret. And I know with the 12
Yeah.
steps in your book. By the way, do you know 12 steps usually refers to AA? When you
No.
first said, when I heard you say 12 steps, I'm like, oh, he's talking about the 12 steps from anyway. But okay, so the first step was like accepting who you are or embracing who you are.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
So I'm big on the idea that you can't do it overnight. It's not something you can be like, you can't wake up tomorrow and be like, I am myself. Um, I think the key things that help me to be myself is to come back to the idea that no one else cares what you're really doing, to be honest. Whether that's true or not, I just believe that fundamentally that no one really cares what I'm doing. So I've got no one to impress because I'm not impressed by what anyone else does. Like, I'm just happy that they're my friend and I don't really care what they're up to. I'm just happy to be around them. So that helps me just direct my life in terms of, hey, what does Jack want to do? And I think it's taken me a very long time to embrace who I am and how I'm different. And I'm still not perfect. I still feel like an idiot some days where I'm just like, the other day I wrote from like for 8 hours on one book and then just like opened up another book and started writing on that one as well. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? That's so weird. But you kind of just have a laugh at yourself. You're like, I'm a human being. And I don't know. I think it's just a decision. It's just so much better when you're doing what you love. I think the grass, like, you just discover how much better it is once you start choosing. You just choose yourself one day and you're like, cool, I want to do this because I am this. And if you keep doing that, you're like, wow, this is just like so much more fun than fitting in. And then you just never stop after that.
Yeah. Because I think fitting in is an illusion. That's what meditation, not to be like
Yeah.
preaching about meditation, but that's what it helps, because that's just a label, right? You're saying this is weird. That's a thought that comes into your head. Whereas, why does it have to be weird? Like, who says it's weird? No one. Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
but you saying you don't fit in, like fit in with who? It's like this illusion. But I have it as well, because I think like this Saturday night I did end up going and meeting friends, but before I did, I was like at home working on this podcast, and I was like, I'm so excited. And then it's like, oh, this is weird, like I should be at the pub or whatever, like everyone else. But then I'm like, who is everyone else? That's a made up thing. Just because you walk past a pub and there are some people at a pub, that doesn't account for every human on earth, right? Imagine how many other people are at home on a Saturday working on their business or the thing they love, because they're also the same as you. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
everyone's
I
different.
think
There's no normal.
if there's two other things that might really help, I think the first one for me, like my biggest fear, well, I have two massive fears, but I think one of the biggest is like the fear of death. And every time I'm just like, man, it'd be pretty sad if I just didn't do these things because I was worried about what other people think. So that gets me going. And then I think the second realization that I've had recently is when I hang out with certain people, they really bring me down. In terms of, I just feel drained at the end of it. Whereas when I hang out with other people, certain people who are aligned with what I'm trying to do and what they love, doing what they love, I walk away energized. And for the first few years of my life, I'd always walk away from hanging out with people and feel drained. And then it's only after a while, like only after discovering these people that I now surround myself with, who bring me up, and I'm like, wow, I can have this every single day. I can meet up with people and just be fully ready to go as soon as I leave after seeing them, because that's who I align with. So I think those two things. You can tell if you're in the
And
wrong crowd if you're always feeling drained.
how did you discover those people?
I think it's just happenstance. I think it's just being. I'm a pretty extroverted dude. Like, I have no problem. I just love talking to strangers. So I don't think I'm extroverted. I think I just choose to talk to strangers. I have this good theory that, like, when you're in a room full of random people, they're just as scared as you to approach you. So just be the person that just goes up and says hi. Like, and then I just do that all the time. And then occasionally I click with someone and I'm like, cool, we're hanging out again. And then you just foster those friendships from there.
And you're not hurt by any rejections?
No.
How?
just just plain and simple. I just don't care. I'm so I don't know. I just move on to the next thing. It just is what it is.
Huh. So are you like that with girls as well? You can just uh, talk to a girl, you're like, cool, don't care, she might ignore me.
Yes, yeah. So if it's like someone if it's someone that I care about, like if I've been in a relationship with them, of course that's if they're like no, like if they're like we're done, that's obviously more painful. But if it's just some random person that I go and talk to, and I just kind of find it funny, it's just I don't get the big deal. I kind of just respect people. I'm just like, cool. They don't owe me anything, and just because I walked up to them doesn't mean that it's like their responsibility to be like, holy shit, look who's in front of me. I better say yes to whatever he's gonna ask. Like, it's just there's no requirements, so it's not a big deal to me. I'm just grateful if I approach someone and they say yes, and then I'm like, cool, this is I'm very glad that I did that.
And where did you this develop? Where did this mentality come from?
I think it's just the fear of death again. I just like have that huge fear of regret. Like I've like I reckon I've got like three regrets in my whole life, and they're so small. And I still need to go fix them. I just haven't bumped into certain people that I just need to go amend certain things with. But otherwise, I've pretty much done everything that I want to do. I just like do it. Like if I say I'm going to do something, I just like start straight away, and that allows me to live without regrets. So when it comes to approaching people, I've just never really not done it because I just know I'd regret it. So I just always do
And
it.
where does the fear of death come from?
Probably just watching. So one of the projects that I'm working on in the new year. So actually, on December 16th, I'm so excited. Is I'm starting. I want to get really big into short film production. So one dude that's had like a huge influence on my life is this guy called Prince EA. I don't know if you ever heard him. He made like a bunch of viral videos back in the day, but one of his two of his videos really stuck with me, and one of them was like all about death and a fear of death. And I reckon I've been listening to that for about 5 years, like every single day. So it's just
Can you
ingrained in me
send
at
this
this
to me?
point. Send
This
you
is
the
what I wanted.
yeah.
This is what I wanted to ask you as well. Because I heard you say, yeah, on this other podcast about there's like 10 motivational speeches or something you listen to all
Yeah,
the
yeah, I've got
time.
them on
What are
record.
they?
So yeah, I'm very against. I don't like people who are like work hard, hustle, 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 bustle kind of guys. I'm not a big fan of those people. They got me through in the initial stages. So yeah, I've got 10 speeches. So the first one's by Art Williams, which is called like "Just Do It," and sounds like a Nike slogan. But basically, this guy's like came from nothing, was like really uneducated, and created like the biggest insurance company in America 20 years ago. And his philosophy is just like just do it. Like when you're in doubt, like just do it. Like if you're struggling, just keep going. Um, so then there's Prince EA, like um, it's just like I've got a different title on my laptop because they're all downloaded. So I call it like 4 a.m. because that's when I used to watch it. But it's just everyone dies, but not everyone lives. So that one I listen to all the time. And then there's a bunch of other ones like things by like Wayne Dyer, which is more about enjoying the present moment and being grateful. So they all serve a purpose, and I listen to the ones that I need to listen to that are relevant for the time being. Like whatever's sucking in my life at the time, I listen to a specific tape, and that gets me going. And I've listened to them all like yeah, a thousand times probably. And that Prince EA one's the only one that I've listened to like every day because it's just such a good reminder. It's like why would you stop? Like you're just gonna die. So like just keep going. Don't waste time and just really just go out on a limb. And that's why I don't think about anything that I do. I just do it, and it's really handy. I think I think people have mentors and stuff. I think the only mentors I've really had, like proper mentors, are these speeches, and they've just kind of really they've just pulled me through so many times. So I owe a lot to those people, and I hope to meet Prince EA one day because he changed my life to be honest, and has pushed me through.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the stuff then that Gareth was talking about, which is gratitude, visualization, like all these things, you are getting them, like being present. You're getting these
Mm.
things through those speeches by the sound, like awareness that we're only on this earth for a limited amount of time. Being great, like gratitude's really important, which sounds like you fully already have that. The fact that approaching someone new, knowing they don't owe you anything, but it's like being grateful for whatever. Like it's all with these practices, it's just people have to find out what works for them, but it's all consistency. And you have the fact that you've listened to this video every single day. Like that's the thing, you can't just meditate one time or like practice gratitude one time or listen to a video once. It's like if this is part of your routine every single day, like that's what
Yeah,
makes long-term change.
yeah, I'm pretty big. Like people say that motivation is crap, and I totally agree. But there's like this great quote by, I think it's by Zig Ziglar, and he's like people say motivation is crap, but it's just like bathing. We prescribe it every single day. I don't think you can listen to something once and have it stick with you. I do think motivation is crap, and I do think if you just listen to a YouTube video once, it's great in the moment, but it's not going to do anything. I think what people underestimate is if you just listen, if you just find something that really resonates with you, and then you listen to that every single day, it's all that you need. It's like, cool, I know exactly, this person's telling me exactly what I need to do, and then it keeps you going. But if I just listened to those videos once, I wouldn't be where I am, because I would just turn those on even in the darkest times. Like when I was up at like 3:30 a.m., I would just turn that on, and it would just remind me of what I'm doing. It was just like a voice of reason. It was like, cool, this is my friend, and he's telling me what I need to do to get to where I want to go. So yeah, without those, I don't know if I'd be where I am, to be honest.
How did you find it originally, and why did you decide to make it a habit? Like, was that in year 12 when you're like, I need the motivation to study
No, I
hard?
found it. I found it in year 10. So I guess however many years that's how long I've been listening to it. So probably that's three plus three, so six actually.
And
So yeah, I found it in year 10.
what were you trying to achieve at that point?
I think just good grades. I think that was all I was really trying to do at the time. I don't think I really knew who I was. I still don't know who I am, to be honest. I'm still like just discovering what I love and everything else as I go. But I think the reason that I've scaled up, like I've done everything so intensely, and I'm always keen to get to the next thing, is because the principles that have been taught in those videos have just become ingrained in me. Like, I know a lot of people take like breaks after they finish projects and stuff. Like, I've got two books coming out, and then I just like I'm so excited for December 16th because I'm starting on new stuff the next day. Like, I'm not taking a break. I'm so excited to do the next stuff. I think that's a testament to the fact that I'm doing what I love, but I think it's also a testament to the fact that these videos have just kind of like made me embrace the process and really enjoy it.
Do you ever take breaks?
Yeah, like I do. I take breaks when I get bored, because when I get bored, then I get kind of like depressed or like down. That's when I don't know. It's really interesting. I think when you're starting out on a project, you fail a lot, and you really don't know how to insert your time. Like it's really hard to direct your time at the start because you're not really knowing. It's like, I don't know, with like music, for instance, that you kind of just don't really get anything. So you're kind of just trying to figure it out as you go. And as a result, you're just very unproductive and you just waste a lot of time and you procrastinate. So I find that it's as if I'm taking breaks during the times that I suck, and then I get really intense once I figure out what it is that I'm going to do. But my key break periods are during exams. I know it sounds dumb, but I'm way busier after exams than I am during exams. I just kind of shut off, study for my exams, and that's pretty chill for me, to be honest. And then after that, I just get back going, and then I ramp it up. And yeah, like I do take breaks like throughout the day, and I make sure that I don't work a lot. I just work I don't like the word work because I just want to do what I'm doing. But I think I do everything 7 days a week, but I don't pull crazy hours. Like I just do like 6 or 7 hours a day, and then just it's that consistency. I just never stop, and I make good progress as a result of it. But I never do like hell long hours like I used to anymore.
And then are you able to relax and switch off? Like, what do you do in the other hours of the day? Go to the beach or
Yeah.
something? And are
Um.
you able to enjoy or you're
Yeah. So
still thinking
slowing.
about work?
No. I never. I'm very good at switching off. I think I have so many interests, so like it doesn't like I'm just jumping between the next one. So each thing feels like a break. Like in the mornings, I train calisthenics. Like I used to do like a bunch of Ninja Warrior, but I'm just taking 3 months off at the moment to just train calisthenics. And then I just muck about during the day. I'll just like alternate between projects, play a bit of video games if I'm bored, and then hang out with friends a lot. Like that's my escape. And then in the afternoons, like at the moment, I'm just taking like dance classes at the moment, and I just do that every
What
single
kind of
afternoon.
dance?
Yeah, so I started this. So ever since I took a break from Ninja Warrior, which was like hell competitive training, just like 2 hours a day, every single afternoon, I just started doing dance. So I do jazz, contemporary, hip hop. I do like three jazz classes, and then like I do the other three. So it's great fun though. It's such a different vibe, and it's not competitive. Obviously, it's like competitive amongst people that care, but I just do it for fun. So that's my meditation, I guess. We just sing and dance to music all the time, and I have a good laugh. And yeah, it's that's
Are
I
you
switch off.
scared about doing new stuff like that? Or you're just like, I don't care. I'm going to go to this dance class. I don't know. Like, do you know
Yeah,
anyone there? Or you just
nah, no, I
decide to do
don't.
something? You're like,
Well, it just sucks. Like I don't get the point of not doing it. Like it's like I want to do it, and I want to learn. I want to get better at dance, and I want to give it a go. And it's like why would I not? I don't. It's just it's just not even a consideration. It's just like I'm doing this. This is like the other week. I was like I want to give stand up comedy a go. So I just started doing this stand up comedy thing. And I stopped after like 3 weeks because I was like this stinks. I'm no good at this, and I don't like it at all. Um, but yeah, I don't think about it. I'm just like why not? I don't see what the harm is. Like no one's judging me for like I don't get it. We just create these things in our heads like people. I'm just so big on I don't care if I'm like right or wrong. I just believe that no one cares what I'm up to. Because I don't care what they're up to a lot of the time. I love hearing about what they're up to when I see them, but otherwise I'm just not really interested. So why would they care about what I have to do? So I just do it. And like they're never going to say it to my face, so it doesn't matter.
okay. So I think the point on that, which I wanted to say is because there's a lot of people come on and talk about depression and suicide on this. So I want to
Mm.
clarify when you say, I know what you mean when you say no one cares, but for if
Oh
you're in
right,
an
sorry.
extremely depressed point, it's like, if no one, no, don't apologize. It's like, you can feel like, because I've been there when I'm like, no one cares, like that I'm worthless. So there's no point in me even being here because literally no one cares. It's like you feel so down on
Yes.
yourself. So it's not like that. It's
Yeah.
like people just want you to be happy and to be you and to like live your life, and people around you care. People care about you because they love you, your friends and family, but people don't care if like your true calling is to become a juggler, and you're so passionate about that, and that's so exciting. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, that's the thing. People aren't like, why are you becoming a juggler? You need to become. But that sounds like it
Yes.
is for your life, which is really good that your parents are like that and are like entrepreneurs and whatever. But I think for other people, they have to break that because they do have friends or family who are really judgmental, or who are putting the pressure on, like, no, you need to become an engineer. That's your only option. You're not allowed to be your true self.
Yes, I totally agree. Yes, that was when I say or yeah when I said that it's incredibly insensitive in the context of like don't I mean like of course people love and care about you and care about me, but what I mean is people aren't. I don't think people are judging you as hard as everyone thinks that people are judging them. Um, I think people are loving towards you, and they care about you, and I care about like every single person that I know, but I'm not judging them for what they're doing. And there's a difference. I just look at people and I'm like, yeah, I really love and appreciate you, and I don't. It doesn't really bother me what you do or what you don't do. It's up to you. It's your life,
Yeah.
and you should do exactly what it is that you enjoy.
And to your point, if you are surrounded by people who make you feel shit about being yourself, then that's where you put in boundaries, or you, find a different group of people who make you feel, that it's not weird to be who you are. But that's hard with
Yeah.
family, right? So with family, it's like, okay, then you have to protect your energy and be careful about, if you're going to get bullied for dancing or something by your dad, it's like, well, then you don't. Then that's obviously sad that that's your relationship, but you just protect your energy and don't tell people who are going to hurt you for being yourself.
Yeah, on that point, I think like if I when I as I mentioned before, like when I tell my brothers, if I told my I don't think I've even mentioned that I go to dance classes to my dad, like, and I've been going for like probably like 10 weeks now. You just like if I told my brothers, and I'm sure I think they already know, but they just kind of laugh, like they take the mic, and you kind of just cop it. You're like, cool, this is their outlet. They're insecure about the fact that they can't do it, and that they're not willing to step outside their comfort zone in their own capacities. I think a lot of people's judgment just comes from their own insecurities. Like if you're trying to start a business and someone's judging you, it's just because they're too scared to start one. It's not that you're starting one that they feel compelled to judge you. So I just always remember that, and that kind of, unless it's like obviously if it's kind of abusive in terms of the bullying that people are giving you, that's probably when you should like obviously have caution. But if people are just kind of taking the mick out of you, just embrace it. It kind of just that's just what comes with it. You just have to accept
Yeah.
that, I guess.
Or I guess the other thing can be like, it's like misery likes company. Like if you're with people who kind of like, you're always just bitching about other people and like whatever, that's how you operate. And then one day you decide like, actually, I'm going to do something about my life and like I'm going to go out and be myself. Other people don't want you to leave because then they're stuck, you know, then it like
Yeah.
forces them to think about what they're doing. Because yeah, exactly as you said, they're like, oh, why can't I just actually be myself rather than sitting here judging other people?
I'm
So then there's like resistance. I think there's always resistance if your friend wants to change. Like if you're all doing the same thing and then one day someone's like, oh, I'm not drinking anymore. It's like, what? Why? Like, no, like you need to be still drinking. And then that's can be hard. But
yeah. I'm pretty big when it comes to this kind of stuff. I've noticed that I'm pretty big on just I'm not big on like burning bridges, but I am pretty big on the idea of like if you want to take the island, burn the boats. In the sense that I'm not saying like cancel your friends straight away, but I am saying like if someone's bringing you down, then just like stop hanging out with them because otherwise you'll kind of forever be content in amongst this comfortable state. And it's only until you like you can still be friends with them on like a general basis, but like it's not until you really start pushing away those people that you actually make time for new people to come into your life. It's impossible for you to try and expect to make new friends until you stop hanging out with the people that are just bringing you down. And it's scary. It's really scary, but um, I think it works. I think it works. I think you just find a way after that. You might be a bit isolated for a little while, but you're like, cool, I'm isolated. Let's go find something else to do. Let's go try and meet some new people. And eventually you get better and better at finding your tribe. And it's worthwhile, in my opinion, because otherwise you just never grow.
interesting. Yeah. And I think that idea can be extended to so many other things. Like, do you read a lot of nonfiction? Or have you read Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights?
No, I haven't
I
read that,
feel like
but
you would
I've
love
seen a
that.
lot.
But because he really wants to stop doing rom-coms and like have more serious acting roles. But he has to, yeah, it's like if you want to make that change, you have to literally stop doing the other thing. And that's really hard because, yeah, in that case, it's like those films, whatever,
Mm.
bring him money. And then he didn't work for like a year and a half because he just couldn't get a film and had to keep saying no and no. And it's the same and then, yeah, obviously it paid off for him in the end. But it's the same for relationships, like people like so unhappy or anything like diet, exercise, like any change you want to make. It's like you can't make the change by doing the same thing every single day. Like you sitting at home, like complaining that you're on your own. It's like, well, how is that going to help? Or being unhappy in a relationship and not changing it, not changing something or yeah, it's like you have to go through that period of discomfort to open space. But it's so interesting. I never thought about that with finding new
Yeah,
people.
I just I think I'm very sporadic. Just in case you haven't realized, I just I as I said, I just do and I do and I do. Um, And my big thing is no matter what it is in my life that I'm trying to get towards, in order to do so, I kind of cut it. If I want to get to a higher standard of life and enjoyment of life, the first thing I do is cut out whatever's bad. So if I'm trying to get to a new dream, I cut out the thing that's holding me back. And I just stop giving that thing time. If I want to do a new sport, I stop doing the sport that I was doing. If I want to meet new friends, I stop hanging out with the friends that I was with. And it's nothing personal. It's just I want more of my life. And I think there's like this great quote by Sir Ken Robinson, who I just admire so much, which is like, it's amazing how little people are willing to settle for, like how much they're willing to accept in their lives. And I think when you just stop accepting things and you stop like just you start questioning things and making changes, that's when you start to realize like, hey, I can actually like change my friendship group. I can do what I want to do. And the first step is getting rid of what is holding me back, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we should probably wrap up in a sec.
Of course.
But I just want to ask you, I was going to get you to tell us all the 12 steps, but maybe that can be, maybe if you want to come when you release the book and you want to promote it, you can come and teach us about it then. But what was the failure that impacted you the most, and what did you learn from it?
In my entire life?
In your entire very short life, yes.
Wow, way to leave on a full note. Let me think. Okay, I think the biggest lesson I've learnt, like the biggest impact on my life, is like I mentioned earlier that I'd like struggled with my self-worth for a long time, and one of the biggest driving factors of my motivation and my never-ending drive has been that I'm not enough for other people. So that was a huge driving force in my life, probably till about 4 or 5 months ago. And I was so convinced that I just like wasn't enough as a human being. And I was just so convinced that I could eventually prove my worth. Um, and I think it was after kind of 3 or 4 years of just looking at myself and kind of not really, like very heavily not kind of seeing that person as being enough, that I finally kind of broke that cycle in my own little way. But I guess if I can leave with one thing is like I used to have quite big body dysmorphia as well for a few years. And what I've realized is that the brain is a really powerful thing. And if you're trying to change something, sometimes you just have to keep working at it and working at it and working at it. And eventually you'll find something that will click. So whether it's you hate your body or you have a low self-worth, obviously there's more medical things, but I'm not saying for those things. I'm just saying for general assumptions that you hold about yourself. I find that if you just keep working at them, whilst it may feel like you're making no progress, just keep trying new things, and then eventually you will find the thing that makes it click, and then that problem will kind of dissipate very quickly, and it will have all been worth it. So yeah, that's probably the thing that's had the biggest impact on me.
So you consciously were like, I want to have a more positive view of my body and I want to feel like I am enough. And then you went out to...
It took me probably like a good year of working at it and just like really, really trying to embrace who I am and loving myself. And yeah, I had it for maybe 4 or 5 years of my life where I really hated who I was. And it's only since like 4 or 5 months ago that I'm actually able to look at myself and be like, hey, you're like a good dude and you are enough. So yeah, it was very personal for me to figure that out and to find what worked for me. And there was no one step secret. It just took a lot of persistence and finding out what works for me. But it worked and it was worthwhile.
So as in literally you were like Googling, how do I accept who I am? And then watching videos.
It was more
Were there
so, I think
any?
it was a lot of introspection and journaling, and I had to figure out why I was wired the way that I was. I had to go all the way back into who I was as a kid, what drove me to think this way, and then I had to use certain people to to help me understand the stupidity in some of my statements. So it was a combination of those two things: the people and reflecting, like a lot of reflection, that allowed me to find what worked for me. It's very unique, I think.
Was it guided reflection, like
No,
self-authoring?
just a lot of just running, letting my mind run, and just working it through, and then using people who are close to me to help me work through it.
Okay, so you just figured out this should work because this. So I'm asking because I'm doing the same thing that I developed this belief in childhood that I'm not good enough.
Mm.
But and now it's like learning so much about neuroplasticity and reading, like, so my thing is I read all these books and then it's like, okay, yeah, everyone's saying this. This is how it works. This is how the brain works, the neural pathways, and you have to rewire them using neuroplasticity because you can form new pathways that then say that you are enough. So you can,
Yeah,
whatever. So I practice that every day, which is like a lot of effort and discipline, but it's like going in and rewiring the memories, which is like through hypnosis. But that's the way I've found. And that's based on, yeah, a lot of work, but
mm.
understanding it's like, okay, 50 different psychiatrists and psychologists and whatever people in this field are saying this is how it works. And now I'm doing it. But how did you just have an instinct of like, oh, journaling about this might work? And then it has
Yeah,
worked.
yeah. I've never been a big researcher or reader. I'm just very big on, I like doing things my own way and finding what works for me. And yeah, for me, just like you, it took a lot of discipline. It took a lot of I think it took a lot of going the wrong way to find the right way as well. I think sometimes that just has to happen for you to realize how stupid you're acting sometimes. Like for me, it just helped. I just went so far one way that I was just like, wow, you're a real idiot sometimes. And then in doing so, I was just like, cool, let's just start breaking this down, working from fundamental principles about who you are as a person. And I think I just took the statements that I just felt about myself that were so heavily ingrained, and I was like, I'm never going to break away from these, and just slowly started picking them apart and just figuring out why they're just very silly thoughts. And then, yeah, and then it worked. It just, I don't know, it just like being yourself. At some point, it just kind of, you just realize you're like, oh, I don't think that about myself anymore. And you don't, it's not like instantaneous. It just happens. And then you look back and you're like, wow, why did I think that? That's so silly. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think the important thing here is for anyone who's listening is the attitude. Like you had that attitude, and now I'm coming to that point where it's like, yeah, I don't want to be a victim anymore. Like I want to change. I have this negative view about myself and I want to change it. And you're
Yeah.
conscious of it, and then you can go out about and do that. But if you're still in the place of like, why me? Why is this happening? This is so hard. Like life shouldn't be hard. This should be easy. Then it takes a bit longer, which, because I was in that place
Definitely.
for a while and blaming other people and blah, blah, blah. And then you have
Yeah.
to realize like, oh no, I have to be responsible for my own life. Damn, that's really hard, but okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it.
I think one key thing is just like, and people say it every single time, but you just use it, like leaning on other people. And if you were like me, who was like super embarrassed to open up about this stuff, as a lot of people are when they first do it, it sometimes it just takes an ear to listen, and it just takes someone to help you through it. And they don't have to be, like, they can just be someone that you know, and someone that you trust, and it makes such a difference. And no, there's no real judgment in it. Most people are pretty embracing when you come to them.
Yeah, I'm so glad you worked through that because it's So, yeah, you're not the first person who's said that on this podcast, that idea that you just hate yourself. And it's so, like, I feel
Yeah,
like I'm going to cry talking about it. It's so, it's so sad, but so many people feel like that about themselves. So I guess that's what, that's kind of like a deeper thing of this podcast, that it's like okay to be whoever you are, like that's okay. And hopefully people get that out of this conversation,
yeah.
that it's like, yep, do whatever weird stuff you want to do. Like it's not even weird.
Mm.
Just, but yeah, definitely don't hate yourself. And if you do, do the work to like embrace yourself, which is easier
Yeah,
said than done and takes years, but it's possible, as you are telling us.
yeah, and rely on people every time. It's always really important, whether it's a psychologist or someone that's your friend or family. It's really important that you always talk to those people.
Yeah. Great. Is that I will just finish on the last. I always say there's only one question, which is how did you grow up? But then sometimes I ask three questions at the end. One, I think we already covered, which is like, how do you stay present? Well, you
Yep.
can answer them if you want. One is, how do you stay present? Or like, do you practice mindfulness or whatever? Two is there a book that's had a big influence on you? And then the last one is, what three words describe the person you want to show up as?
Okay. I love those questions. So the first one, how do I stay present? Um, I do interesting work. That's how I stay present in the weirdest way possible. That's how I stay present. A book that's had a big impact on me. I know it's a bit like it's a bit different, but honestly, The Hunger Games. I've read that book so many times, and it's just an escape for me. I like to embrace my silly side, and I've read that book so many times, and I just really like it, and it's a good escape for me from all the seriousness of the self-help books that I read in between. Um, and then the final question, how do I want to show up? With three words. So loving, empathetic, and probably courageous, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to, anything else you didn't get to say?
Nah, it's been such a good chat though. This is definitely the deepest that I've gone on a podcast, so I love it.